Space. I'm Kim Kral. I am reporting to you, not live from my closet. Every time I hear the theme song to this, I don't know why. I think it's so fucking funny. I was editing the episode from last week when my friend Jess was recently here, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna make some noise in a minute, and then it's gonna go away. And I played crawl space, and she of course loves it because she loves me, and also it's awesome. But I am really grateful for the human that had me do that. There were two people who are awesome in my life. One, she was going to be the producer of the live crawl space when it was going to go on Dash Comedy, and she was like, I think you need to sing your own theme song. Her name's Sarah, and she's fucking amazing. I haven't talked to her in a long time, but just an incredible soul. And I was like, I don't sing. She goes, that's fine. Here's an app. You're going to sing it. And I was like, I don't. And so it was like a couple of weeks. She's so talented, and producing for a couple of weeks. I was like, I don't want to do this. And every time I sent her something, she's like, what the fuck is this? What the fuck is this? Like, she's like, I know you're better than that. I know you're better. I know you're better. And then I sent her this, and she goes, that's the one. And another friend of mine, Maggie, she's very talented comedian, a voiceover actress, and a fucking all around inspiring human. She was like, can I make a theme song for you? And so she sort of, and I was like, well, I'm going to sing my own now. I know it's not that funny, but for me, to me, I think it's hilarious. And so she had like written some like sample stuff. So some of that is her writing samples. I don't know. Every time I listen to it, it makes me laugh very hard. And then I kind of think I should put it as my ringtone. I mean, who has their phones on anymore anyway, you know? It's wild to me when people have their ringtone on. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or if this is just my like rigid need to control certain things. But when people have their ringtone on, I just look at them like, who the fuck do you think you are? That like the audacity, the rudeness of like having your ringtone on in the middle of like the post office. You know what I mean? Like if you need to hear, if I'm waiting for a phone call and I'm going to be somewhere that's like generally quiet or whatever, I put it on vibrate and I can feel it and then I answer it. Right. I don't know. It's like, I admire the audacity, but it also annoys me. I was at the post office yesterday and this guy's like, it was like dead. Why I said the post office, but it was like dead silent, and except for the people that were getting helped. And I'm, I'm a jumpy broad. So I was just in my own head thinking about whatever. And, this someone's phone rang and it scared the fuck out of me. But it's also like, who has ringtones these days? Who? I used to have ringtones, like separate ringtones for everyone when we first all got the flip phone. Ikea, that's a furniture store. Nokia. I used to have one. I had, hey there Delilah, what's it like for New York City? I think if you read my book, a lot of you I assume have, if you're listening all the way to here. If you haven't, you can buy it at Amazon or on my website. And I'm going to say that every single week. I think it's so funny. I think Maria Bamford was the one who said it, that you have to like relentlessly promote yourself and until you don't have to anymore. And then that's when people are like, it's just an interesting industry that you really do have to keep like rooting yourself on no matter what. I talk about this all the time, and it's the high, the ups and downs of doing that. But he was the hey there Josh Norton in my book, and I think I like the hard love story I've talked about. And there's also an episode called "Do You Save Your Old Love Letters" that I tell the story of him. This guy that listens, he posted, one of my listeners, one of you guys, made a comment on that particular episode and was just like, what a sad and beautiful story. I don't think he said it. I don't think those were the exact words. I'm paraphrasing, but that guy's ringtone was, hey there Delilah, what's it like in New York? I can't sing. And my parents were Gnarls Barkley, Crazy. And I remember one time, I don't know, I got this 15 years ago. My mom and I were at the airport, and she was, I'm going back to LA, and she's saying her byes, and my phone rings and that song comes up. Does that make you crazy or whatever it is? And I was like, oh, my dad's calling. And she goes, that's his ringtone. And then she laughed and laughed and laughed. And I was like, Terry, I wouldn't get too too pompous. Like that's your ringtone too. You're also cray. But she, my mom always had a really good sense of humor, so she laughed hard about that. Yeah. So I don't know. It's but Jess told me I should make that the crawl space my ringtone, but I never have my ringtone on. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I just always, every time somebody has their sound on their phone, I'm always like, who the fuck do you think you are? That, like, can you imagine if we all had our sounds on our phones? It's just really weird and irritating to me, but I don't actually care. It's just an observation, I guess. Oh, so today is my Aunt Amy's birthday. And a reminder, my Aunt Amy passed away about 5 years ago, and she was like my mom. And my uncle, her wife, passed in December, and he was like a second dad to me. And it's so funny when you lose somebody. When I say funny, like it's so haha, but not like funny, but like it's just so interesting when you lose somebody. And I've lost a lot of humans in my life. When you lose somebody, there's the normal anniversaries, normal dates that you think are going to hit you do for sure, like first Christmas, your first birthday, all that shit. It for sure does, right? But like the little ones that you don't think about until it happens. So since my Aunt Amy passed, I call my Uncle Steve every April 27th. These are a week late, as today is April 27th, but you'll be listening to April 20th. Unless you're on Patreon, if you want to get early access to these episodes, you know the drill. I say it every week. If you want to join Patreon, I would love it, love it, love it. If you can't, totally fine. Love that you listen. But this is the first Aunt Amy birthday that I didn't call my Uncle Steve. And it hit me a little bit harder than I did not expect for this to be like a weird anniversary, or not anniversary, but like milestone. Like when my dad died, I hadn't been in that guy's life in so long. Like my first birthday after, becoming estranged from him, cutting him out of my life. The first birthday without him, I cut him out of my life. I think it was either my 29th or my 28th birthday, a couple of weeks, like a month or two before it. I can't fully, I think it was April. I have the letter because I wrote him a letter and he kept it in his desk. And the letter is in a closet somewhere. Maybe one day I'll get rid of it. I don't know. In a closet somewhere, in the current closet I'm in above me in boxes. I'm in a box somewhere, whatever. But like that first birthday that I didn't, and when I cut ties with him, I kind of cut ties with my family. Not all of them. Some still wish me a happy birthday or whatever, but like a lot of them, that was just all she wrote for a long time. And that first birthday, I wasn't sad that I didn't have parents. I cried because I was so grateful for the humans I did have in my life. So when my dad died, I didn't really, like, a lot of people talk about their first Christmas without their dead parent or their first birthday without their dead parent. And I didn't really have that because like I already went through the first Christmas without my parents, and the first, when they were still alive, I already like kind of mourned that. But the first big milestone that I had, or the first whatever, was my first Star Wars without my dad. Star Wars was like our thing. My dad loved Star Wars, and he got me to love Star Wars. Even through high school, when we'd watch the movies, even though I could obviously read, he would always read all the like Jabba the Hutt, the captions, what Jabba the Hutt was saying, and like all the like, the, I was gonna say sea creatures. That's not, sorry. All the space creatures, but whatever. But like, Jabba the Hutt, Boba Fett, all that stuff, right? You'd always read this. And so when I watched the first, The Force Awakens, it was in December, the year he died. And I went to the theater alone. I love seeing movies alone. In fact, I think I'm going to go try and see a movie. I guess it's got to be next week. My schedule's a little fantastic right now, but I used to go to movies all the time by myself before the world ended, and I kind of want to go back and do it. Somebody told me to see the Everywhere All at Once, Nowhere at the Same Time. That's not what it's called, but if you know, and if you don't, you're like, what the fuck are you talking about? But it's for sure not what it's called, but it's somewhere like that. And so I was like worried because so many spoilers were going out on the internet about Star Wars: The Force Awakens, and I was so worried that I was going to accidentally see it. Right, like I know one dude that I know, he posted the spoiler. And if you haven't seen it, I mean, this was like 7 years ago, bro, but he posted that Han Solo died. And that's, a spoiler, I guess, but it's almost been a decade. So no one has to abide by those. It's like 6 months. I feel like everyone should, but if you don't see a movie that you're worried about the spoilers within like 6 weeks of the movie coming out, like you don't get to like yell at people for being like, oh, Han Solo died. But what's interesting is that like Han Solo, like, first of all, Star Wars is all a dad themed fucking movie, right? Like all the movies are like dad themed, kind of. I mean, one of the major themes are fucking dads, right? And so I went to this movie by myself. I was terrified of the fucking spoilers. So I basically like blacked out and woke up at the movie theater, right? Like I like panicked and then got into my car and I mean, not blacked out, like drunk. I didn't drive drunk to the theater. I was sober, but like I got to the theater and I was like, oh wow, I really did this. When you'd react, whatever. And so especially before I was doing like ACA and shit, I would just like react to stuff and then I like blindly and then wake up in my car and be like, oh my God. And all sober. It's just disassociation, right? God, if you know nothing about me and you've never listened to this, maybe if you do know a lot about me and you've always listened to this, you might still think I'm crazy, whatever. But so I get there and it's so funny because Jeff May, the guy that I do we have a podcast for the Patreon subscribers, he was there and I walk in and he's like, Kim Kral. And I was like, hi. And he goes, who are you here with? And I was like, no one. And he's like, well, sit next to us. And I was like, all right. I don't really like sitting next to people at movies, but Jeff is fine. I've seen plenty of movies with Jeff and he is a good movie partner. I just don't like going to movies with people who have to like experience it with you. You know what I mean? Like, haha, that was funny, right? Did you see that was funny? And I'm going to look at you until you acknowledge that I also thought it was funny. We can just enjoy the movie, but Jeff is a really good movie goer partner. So I sat with him. Then Han Solo died and I fucking lost it. Like I rewatched that movie later because I had no idea. Like before the second one came out, I rewatched it because I had no idea how it ended because I blacked out. I was crying so hard. I could not stop crying. And Jeff was like, are you going to be okay? And I was like, I just got to get out of here. And I ran down to the parking garage, which is like the basement of this thing, like underground parking garage. I ran down there and I sat in my car and it was the first sober cry I had about after my dad had died. And, a lot of like, I'd cried, but first sober, like real cry. Like, obviously I cried, but most of it, a lot of it was like, I wouldn't let myself feel it. And then I'd have a few drinks and then I'd sob. Right. But this is the first like sober cry. And I was like trying to push it down and going back to like what I was talking about last week about like pushing feelings down and just how I wish more people didn't do that. I really have a theory that if we all just fucking felt our shit and talked to each other and stopped isolating each other I've been getting into this talk and argument a lot. There's going to actually be a trigger warning on the Jeff and Kim podcast that we recorded because we do get into kind of a heated debate about some stuff. So if you want to be a Patreon subscriber, that's another. Is that a selling point? Listen to the episode. I mean, it's, we love each other a lot. He's a really good dear friend of mine. So I love that we can have these heated debates and then be able to like be cool. But I was like, I was ready. I was trying to push it down and then I stopped because I was like, I just got to drive out of here and get out of here. And then I stopped myself and I was like, or you can just sit in your car and fucking cry. And I just sat in the bottom part of a parking garage in Burbank and sobbed my heart out. And I was like, God, I didn't even think the first Star Wars without my dad. And I didn't think today I would be. So, my Aunt Amy was one of the coolest fucking people I've ever met in my life. I was texting with her kids today who are like my brother and sister. I mean, they're my brother and sister. And I was texting them and we were just like, I think like this woman lived, I was just like, I was just like, every time I'm afraid of anything, I think of my Aunt Amy. because she was fucking fearless. And her daughter was like, yeah, fearless and reckless, but man, fearless and reckless at times, but man, she lived her life fully. And then I was like, maybe that's why she didn't stay. I mean, alcoholism a little bit too, but maybe that's why she didn't stay here long, because she packed a whole lot into 60 years. Day of her funeral, her mother, who is like 99 now, fucking wild. Her mother looked at me. We're at the funeral, and her mother looked at me and she was like, Amy loved you like you were her own. And so I'm always a little melancholy on this day. It's my dead, not mom's birthday. But I did not expect to be so sad about my Uncle Steve today. Because I always talk to him today. I was calling, just to let him know I'm thinking about him. And I just won't be doing that again. Whew, Jesus Christ, huh? It's last week's episode was called Living Out of on the Edge of My Comfort Zone. And it's that woman, anytime I'm scared of anything, I channel my inner Aunt Amy, because she was just so, man, I wish everybody had a woman like her in their life. Like, she's just like, how I always described her was like, if if we were all on the edge, and I've said this millions of times on this podcast when I've talked about her, but when we're say we're all on like an edge of a cliff, and we're all looking over, and it's a cliff that you can cliff dive off of, but it's scary, and everyone's looking over it and debating if they should jump. And this broad has already handed us her beer and cigarette and is just already over the edge. She was just fearless, didn't give a fuck what people thought about her. And maybe, I mean, she was a human, so maybe she did, but she just loved fucking fiercely and just lived every day like it was, she was just so great. I remember, God, I could talk about her. And how old would she have been? She would have been 65 today. Isn't that wild? God, that's so fucking young. And it's funny, last week I was talking about my friend, Catherine, I think you said her name. I have no idea, but friendships growing apart. Today is also her birthday. And, no matter how much we are not really in each other's lives anymore, I believe we always wish each other a happy birthday. I mean, I looked at the text and I'm like, yeah, I think we've been doing it. And I text her, happy birthday, hope you're having a great day. Miss you, hope you're doing well, whatever, right? And she texts me and she's like, oh my God, I'm going to be there the first week of June. I was like, the end of, like, what day? She's like, the 5th. And I was like, I'm going to Thailand the 7th. So she's like, we'll make the 5th happen. And so, like, it's just, like I said, the running theme in my life recently is just letting relationships go naturally, and like not necessarily having to have them be like, this dramatic ending. Like, oh my God, we're not friends anymore because we have this like, some of them are. Some of the friendships that I've let go recently are dramatic endings, but most of them are just like, we'll come back around if we're supposed to, and it's just really, yeah. So today's her birthday too. It's not just fucking wild, man. Oh, wild. Yeah. So I've been talking about, I think, yeah, the running theme has just been friends that come and go. And I know and I don't know what I'm working through, like what layer of the onion I'm peeling back that is making me like look at all of these friendships and all the people that have come and gone and stayed in my life. But like, I'm doing more work in ACA, and it's, I don't know. I'm so grateful I have this voice in my head. I call it the voice. My friend Jess the other day was like, oh, it's your guides. And I'm like, yeah, I'm so grateful I have this clear, distinct voice that isn't necessarily me, but I can hear it. Because it's the voice that told me to go to Thailand. And it's the voice that told me to do this new workbook in ACA with this certain person that I'm working it with. And it's just like, I'm really grateful for the peeling of the onion. I'm really grateful for it. But whatever I'm working on, it's really making me look at friendships and the ones that, you hold on to, and the ones, and last week I talked about Catherine. The week before, I think I talked about Mark. Mark, I'm not going to say his last name. He's also not on social media, so I don't even think you can look him up. But he is just a gem. And Another friendship that a friendship I wanted to talk about. I was in college. It was my freshman year of college, and we lived on the fourth floor of Harrison Hall. I think, is that what it was called? The North fourth floor? I don't know. I fell in love on that. I got my first minor in possession. The guy I fell in love with stayed up all night while I was blackout, passed out. My first and only minor in possession, by the way. But I was like blacked out, passed out, after like puking alcohol poisoning, and he stayed up all night making sure I was okay. And then he yelled at me when I like came out. Everyone was like, "Oh my God, Adam stayed up all night worrying." And I was like, "He did. He loves me." And then I went out to like thank him for being worried. He just screamed at me. I'm like so mad. And now as an adult, years later, I look back, I'm like, God, that kid really did love you. At the time, I was like, he didn't care, but dramatic shit. But I lived on this fourth floor, and I don't know if other dorm floors were as close as we were, but we all were. I mean, most of those people, again, friendships come and go, and I'm friends with them on Facebook and Instagram, and maybe they listen to this, and if you do, hi, I hope you're well. And it's just so funny how we let go, but there was a friendship on that floor. One night, this is a very dramatic tale. Are you ready for this? One night, Adam and I were having one of our particularly dramatic conversations, drunk nights. I have no idea, but for whatever reason, there was a recycling room at the end of the hall, and it was like this tiny room that had this window, and it was like, and then there was like a couple recycle bins, and then I think like a pop machine or some shit. I honestly don't remember, but I remember I was going to walk down the hall and just sit in that room and stare up at the moonlight and dramatically be sad about Adam. Like, I don't know. I honestly, it's so interesting. Like, talk about like guides. Like, I don't know if I was like, I should walk down this hallway and cry in that recycle room, but something got me to that recycle room on that night. And a 20-year friendship was developed that night. We walked in there, and this woman named Rain, well, this kid named Rain, we were kids, dude. We were fucking 18. Rain, which is the coolest name ever. She listens. Hi, Rain. I asked her if I could use her name. She said yes. Just so we're all on the same page. Because it's a distinct name. So if you wanted to look her up, you'd be able to. She's lovely. But she was sitting there and was doing the exact same thing I was planning on doing, staring up at the moonlight, being sad about some boy. And it's funny, I know what boy I was sad about, but I could not tell you what boy she was sad about. But we had, over the years, many, many boys that we leaned on each other over. And I went down the hallway, and it's funny, I wonder what we've talked, like we have like a joke about, not a joke, but we have like I'm so grateful for that recycle room thing that we say to each other. But it's, I wonder what, I just wonder her side. And I guess I've never asked her side. Maybe I have. I don't know. It's been 20 years, guys. And she was sitting there, and I think I was just like, "Can I join you?" And we sat there, and I told her all about Adam, and she told me all about her Adam. And this friendship was born. And she was tall. She was my first like tall female friend. Tall female friend. We're the same height, and just stunning. And we just developed this relationship that, like, it's been 20 years, and there are times that we've not grew apart. And I lived in LA, she lived in Georgia. I think she lived in Georgia or Alabama. She's definitely going to text me and be like, Georgia bitch. She won't call me a bitch, because she's just like one of the most kind, gentle humans I've ever met in my life. And we've always been able to find our way back to each other. We always have. And when you growing up with someone is bumpy, and growing older with someone is bumpy too. Like a lot of friends in my life I look at it that way. Like my sponsor that I've talked to you guys about, that we aren't, we are in a growing apart stage, but the right ones you always find your way back to. And I just, truthfully, like Rain and I have had way too much of a personal, like, deeply personal relationship, like one of the most and first probably intimate relationships I've ever had. Um, like being able to just truly share who we are, what we've been through, how we're dealing with it, how we're navigating trauma, and with that, with intimacy and that level of honesty comes rawness and I truthfully like so that's that this friendship's not one I want to share too much on here, but I wrote it down because I've been kind of talking about best friends in the last couple of weeks and people that the precious few you hold on to, and I wrote her down because I didn't feel right about not including her, and I know she's not a person who would be like, yeah, I've been waiting for you to tell, you know what I mean? She's just not, she's just like one of the most humble, beautiful souls I've ever met. But it's intimacy. Like, I think a lot of people, when they think about intimacy, they think like sex, and yes, that is 100% a form of it. But when I got into ACA, I realized that intimacy is not just physical with a sexual partner or whatever, but it's also, and of course that's what that is too, but it's friendship. And this is one of the most, and maybe the first real intimate relationship I ever had. I mean, my high school best friends, the one Catherine I talked about last week, and the other one, I think we did have a level of intimacy, but like the way children do. Do you know what I mean? Like we shared a lot, but like Rain was my one of, I want to say, my first like friendship that I talked to her about a lot of my trauma, a lot of it. And through 20 years, man, 20 years, different states. She lived in California for a little bit. She's married, she's kids now. Through all of that, we still keep up a friendship. And it's just so true. The precious few you fucking hold on to, man. You just do. And I'm grateful for her. We'll call her my one lucky broad today. I texted her yet. All right, we were on the phone yesterday, and I was telling her about the guy I have a crush on. That just so funny. I posted about that. I posted this, right? What I'm about to tell you, because I was like, whatever. This guy he never watches my stories. Like even before I had a little crush on him, never, ever, ever. The years we've been following each other, because I'm one of the psychos that who watches the stories. I don't care if you think that. Yeah, someone told me that made me a psycho. They're like, what a psychopath, and I'm like, really? I feel like there's many other things that I do that make me a psychopath, but I also, one of the main reasons I watch who watches my stories is a lot of my artist friends, whether comedians, actors, painters, like whatever they are, my artist friends, I want to make sure I'm watching their stories. So I go through, like sometimes the algorithm won't show me them. And so like if I look through who's watching my stories, and I get to see who I missed. And so a lot of the reason why I do it is to be supportive. Like I'll go through and be like, oh yeah, okay, I'll watch this person's story, because a lot of times Instagram won't show me all of the people that I want to see, right? So yes, I guess that. So I'm one of the psychos, but I posted about what I'm about to tell you, what Rain said about me having a crush on this guy. And I was looking through the thing today, and I saw that he watched the story, and I was like, oh God, what did I post? Right. And like, so I like went through, and I was like, oh, well. And when I told her that, she goes, well, I really hope he knows that you were talking about him. I was like, she's just such a like, the way with words, man. So when I told her, after I told her all my crush, and I'm a storyteller, so that like 30-minute story I told her about someone I'm just getting to know, because I am a dramatic storyteller, and I love that about myself. When I was done telling her that, she goes, good for her, and then said his name, good for him. And I was like, what? She goes, well, good for him, you have a crush on him. That's exciting for him. And that's the type of friend she is. Like, not just like supportive and fucking lovely. And I am one lucky broad that I get to call her family, that we have grown up and are growing older together. Isn't that wild? We're growing older together, and it's been a fucking pleasure, man. It's just been amazing. God, she was there. I remember when I came to LA, and my first time back to Colorado, it was winter, but I wanted to wear heels and a skirt because I wanted to show everyone in Denver. And I was an LA girl now. I was 21. So fuck off with your judgments. I was 21 and I remember I was at my dad's house and I was sliding down the driveway in these heels. And my dad was like, fucking really? So he's like, you want to be ashamed of yourself. So I go to Greeley where I went to school. And my plan was to like walk into the Armory, I think the bar's name was. I don't know. I was staying with Rain, which thank God, because when I woke up full of shame the next morning, she was there for me. My plan was to go to the Armory. I think that was the bar that it was called. And it was like something like $2 you call it, or some wild bullshit that they're like, hey, children, I think I had like 5 Long Island iced teas. I've never had a Long Island. I don't think I've had a Long Island since, but I had a bunch of Long Islands that night. It cost me like $12. And Adam was there. Adam's the first love that I've talked about a ton, right? Adam was there, and this is the first time I was going to see him since I came back from LA and I left college. And my plan was to just be really pretty and cool and show him what he was missing. Those plans always backfire, by the way. Anytime, at least for me, anytime I'm like, I'm going to go to this place where I know an ex is and I'm going to look really hot and be really cool, it never works out the way you want it to. Grant you 20 some odd years later, it's pretty funny and it makes a good story. So, and there was a lesson or two learned that night, but I show up, I see Adam, and we start talking. And that night was the first night he told me he loved me. He was like, I love you. And I was like, what? And I'm hammered, right? I'm like, what? He's like, I love you. And I was like, no, you don't. He's like, yeah, I do. And I was like, why would you say that? And then what happened next is what we called Cry Fest 2003, where I just went around my college town, and we still went out, but I couldn't stop crying. Everywhere we went and saw the frat boys everywhere. And Adam was like 5 feet behind me the whole night, was just like, I don't know what to do. And I'd walked up to people and I was like, hi, Justin, it's really good to see you. And he was like, oh my God, are you? I don't know who Justin is. Just came up with some name that was popular in the 80s. But like everybody I ran into was just sobbing. And Adam was just, 5 feet behind me. And I'm sure Rain was pissed off because, we were supposed to have this fun night. And I just, once again, the Adam drama of, that went on for a decade, man, foiled our plans once again. And I woke up the next morning in her bed, just full of shame and embarrassment. And, I think she was mad, but she also does what friends do, which is just, it's going to be okay. I love you. I had a friend who recently went somewhere with an old friend, with her Rain, and she didn't do anything that, like, she just didn't behave exactly the way her friend wanted her to. And they were on like a trip, and the friend, she woke up drunk or whatever. She woke up in the morning after a night of partying, and her friend was like, yeah, I'm pissed off at you, and now I'm going to ruin the rest of the trip. And that's just fuck, man. Yeah, Rain was just like, yeah, it was fucked up or whatever she said, but she didn't. And I remember, I don't know, was that the trip? I don't know. She was one of the first people I told about my dad's abuse. And one of the first people that helped me process it, especially when I didn't even know what the fuck I was processing. But she was one of the first people that did that. And I remember my dad picked me up in Greeley from her house, and we got in the car. And this is when I was like starting to really pull away from him. And, it was a couple more years before I completely cut him out of my life. But I was going to Al-Anon, I was going to therapy, and no one was asking questions about his behavior yet. But I had started to sort of be like, yeah, this is not, I don't think my dad was the best dad that everyone thought he was. And we got in the car, and I don't know if I ever told her this, but we got in the car, my dad and I, And we're driving back to Denver, which is like, I don't know. I feel like when I was in college, it was like 6 hours away, but now I think it's like 45 minutes outside of Denver. I'm not 100% sure. It might be 2 hours. I have no idea, but I think now living in LA, a 45-minute drive is like, oh, well, that's just going to Santa Monica. Like it's not like that big of a deal to me anymore. But when I lived in Greeley, it felt like it was like 6 days to get home. By the way, when I go back to Colorado, I feel like it takes 6 days to get everywhere. Everyone drives so fucking slow. I am a city girl. I can't deal. I don't mind going to like a small ass town and like, live in that for a few weeks, but I can't. I'm too, I don't know, maybe that'll change as I get older, but no, I love the city, man. But so we get in the car and we're driving and he out of nowhere, God, I don't know if I've ever told you guys this. He out of nowhere looks at me and he goes, when you were a kid, I showered with you a lot. But, when you turned 5, I thought it's too much time. I should stop showering with her. And that's the day I stopped showering with you. Got it? And I didn't have the tools and I just didn't have the tools or the brain capacity to respond. I literally just looked at him and then just looked out the window. And I told Rain and my friend Sarah, who lived in LA, my first friend, my other best friend, right? I told her, and Sarah was like, he knows what he did. And it's so funny because now we as you guys know, I say it's so funny when I don't actually mean like, ha ha ha. But it's so interesting because for so long I thought maybe he just didn't know what he did. Maybe he just didn't know what he was doing was wrong. Maybe it was like not something he was consciously doing until that moment when he admitted that. And then I was like, oh my God, he does. And I don't know why I thought it was a possibility. This guy was just like doing this without knowing it. It's so wild. But I don't know, man. I hope to be here for a long time. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I've been doing a lot of exercising, eating as healthy as I can. Just really, I'd like to be here a long time. I like it here. I love the people we get to meet. There's a lot of people that suck, but there's a lot of fucking humans that are just magical. Whew. Let's see here. I'm planning Thailand still. I'm having a really hard time doing it because of my perfectionism and my fear. I'm very afraid I'm going to do something wrong. And I'll be like, in another country. And it'll be like, oh, the airport you booked to fly down to the islands is not in this country. You booked a different, you know what and the internet is great, but a lot of it's in like half of it's in military time. The other half's not. A lot of things are in like kilograms and centimeters or whatever the metric system is that for some reason America has decided not to use. So it's just a lot of Googling and a lot of fear. And I've realized a lot in my work that in my work on myself and the peeling of the onion, that when I was growing up, my dad called me lazy a lot. He said I was lazy and that I procrastinate. I was lazy, and now I understand that it wasn't laziness. It was probably depression, but it also was like, he instilled in me very clearly, and in writing too. I think I told you guys about the psychology notebook. I'll tell you about that in a second, but instilled in me very clearly all of the time that nothing is worth doing unless you do it right the first time. What? That's wild. And that also makes sense to me because that guy never followed through with shit. He used to have, and I know I've talked about this a bunch, but it's just really bear with me in the next 6 months, guys, because we're peeling some more onions. Peeling the onion, layers of the onion, something about the onion. You know what I mean? It's, oh my God, my cat is sleeping right above my head. And you guys, I love that fucking animal so much. So bear with me because we'll probably be retelling stories from a different perspective. It's just so wild. The more you grow, the more you look at different situations in a different way. And it's just like, man, that used to really upset me. And now I think it's this, or man, this really confused me, but now it's so clear, But he used to have he was like, I would come home from wherever, school or whatever, and I would, and many times I would open my side of the garage, and my side of the garage would be full of something. Like one time it was full of like 40 boxes of Herbalife. Another time it was full of like 4 or 5 massive vending machines. And he just always had these like ideas of what he wanted to do, but he never followed through. And I know now in my work, like I always just thought it was kind of weird, but in my work, I know that that's like fear of criticism, fear. And like a lot of my trauma, not just like obviously the abuse was, a big chunk of it, but a lot of it is also generational, and a lot of it's like passed down. And like my fear of doing anything wrong, so I don't do things, is from something that was taught to him, because that's what he would do. He never sold any of that Herbalife. We had that Herbalife in our house for like 10 years. And then the vending machines. And I've told you guys this before. I am pretty positive those vending machines he died like 7 years ago and left Denver even longer ago than that. I'm positive those vending machines are in just some fucking office building, just empty, and people being like, when's this guy going to come fill this up? Like, there's no way for me. I've gone through all of his notes. I was hoping, I got to ask my cousins if they found his computer, because my uncle was going to send me his computer, because I just wanted to, going through his notes was one of the saddest things when I was going through his stuff after he died, obviously. One of the saddest things, because he would, and inspiring too, almost, because he would write, he had this notebook where he had like written down goals and, his financial goals and the goals that he had for his career, but he just never did it. He was just like, I assume, and I know that that's not super fair because he died, but like, I just can speak from my own experience that when I'm frozen and doing something, it's because I'm afraid of not doing it right or perfect, or the criticism that would come with not doing something right or perfect. And like, it breaks my heart that that guy spent a lifetime that way. Like, yeah, the psychology notebook. So my senior year of high school, we had to make this massive psychology class. And that was the big reason why you took this psychology class. Her name was Mrs. Carpenter, I think. I think that was the name of the teacher. I don't know. She was really cool. But so she, like, the reason why you took it is so you could have this like cool scrapbook that you made throughout the whole thing. And, there was like a week where we drew a pond, and then whoever had us draw the pond, like analyzed why the pond, like, the pond represents your mom and the mountain represents your dad or whatever. Right. I have it all written down in some notebook in this closet somewhere. This closet is like a fucking Tetris. It's like perfectly, but it has so much in it. It's not even really that big. And I had to make room for it when I started doing crawl space. And now I have this whole space that I sit in and do, all this shit. But like, so what was I saying? Oh yeah, the psychology notebook. So one of the assignments was to ask your parents to write a letter to you and like what they would say. And my God, I imagine Miss Carpenter probably didn't read all of these letters. Because truly, honestly, they're probably just super boring. Like the average teenage parents are probably just like, I wish you the best. I hope you go to college and you have a beautiful family, or whatever regular parents wish for their children. My dad's typed out a full page where it was mostly about how we traveled well together, which is not real. I used to either sleep in the car, the bathtub, or the balcony of the hotel had a balcony, so I wouldn't be abused. So that is why, that is like, it's just like the denial is so. But so a big paragraph about how we traveled well together and we didn't seem to fight that much on the road. I was like, oh God, I was horrified to travel with you. Horrified. Those trips were some of the hardest, most dysfunctional, traumatic things of my life, and so intimate, and not the way it should be with your fucking dad, right? And things that I've had to go to therapy with forever. And by the way, I know a lot of this, like I talked about this yesterday on Ugh Fine with Jeff, and because at the end of, we had a big argument about, you got to listen to it, but he was like, I think I might delete this. And I was like, I don't think you should. I think we should keep having these hard conversations, because we all are so fucked up. We're all so fucked up, but we all hide it from each other because we think that we're terminally unique. And if we don't talk and, like, isolate and not talk to people about how we're like, I don't know. I just think, and by the time you listen to this, I will have seen the play about my friend Anna. I just think, maybe if we talked about all this fucked up stuff, maybe people like Anna wouldn't be so afraid to ask for the help they really need because they'd understand that they're not alone. So I know, like, sometimes I'm talking about not the funniest stuff, but I think it's just like, God, we're all so fucked up. And I think as soon as we all realize how fucked up we all are and we all can just finally talk about it, I feel like that heals the world. Maybe that's crazy. I don't know, but I firmly stand in it. So, yeah, I spent a whole paragraph talking about how we traveled well together and just like, oh God, I have, oh, I had, I have terrible dreams about those trips, the intimacy, the like weird intimacy between a daughter. Like it was just, I mean, this is stuff that I will have to actively work on the rest of my life in order to not, open my wrists in a bathtub. That sounds really fucking dramatic, but it's, it was really fucking dramatic. So, and then the rest of the letter was about how the times he was most proud of me is when I was the best, and that he's really glad that he instilled in me that nothing is worth doing unless you do it right the first time. That is an insane lesson to teach a child because it's like, what? No one does anything right the first time. No one. The first time I cooked something, I burned it. The first time I tried to walk, I fell. You know what I mean? Like none of it, like so insane. But I have that letter and I recently read it, I don't know, like a year ago. So recently, in the near kind of future or past. And I was like, and after I had done like the steps and I was working on myself, I was like, Jesus Christ, who tells a child this? No wonder I'm scared to start anything because it was instilled in me as a child that if you're not perfect, no one's going to love you. If you're not perfect, it's not worth doing. And my mom's letter was 5 handwritten pages that basically said, she's sorry she chose alcohol over me. And it's lovely. And I really appreciated the honesty and heart she put into it. But man, Miss Carpenter, she really did read those. She's probably like, Jesus Christ. But and that letter I actually cherish quite a bit. My dad's letter was totally insane, but my mom's letter, I think she was sober at the time. She was pregnant with my little brother my senior year of high school. And so she was sober, working a 12-step. And like my mom, the mom I talk about lovingly on here, the mom that I wish she could be again. And then my stepdad wrote a letter about how he loved me a lot. I was like his daughter, but he wished I was nicer to my mom. So wild. So the procrastination and the perfectionism is something I've been really looking at lately. Just looking at it because I have a mountain of to do, a mountain of stuff. My friend that I work my new ACA peeling the onion some more. She gave me because I was like, I want to take the shoulds out of my vocabulary. I should be doing this. I should be doing that. Or the needs. I need to do that. I need to, I grew up with my dad saying, you should be doing this. You should do that, and it's not, I want to take it out of my brain because it's just like it's just not a good thing to say to yourself, right? It's shaming, kind of. It's badgering. I don't know. And she was like, I replaced it with my true self wants. And that's I feel like that's what we're all working on, finding our true selves. And it's hard and it's, but I think it's the most important relationship. That's really cliche, but it really is. I won't abandon myself again because this is the most important relationship. And I'm so grateful, dude, for COVID. I know that, I mean, our lives are forever changed, and a lot of, awful people have come to light, and a lot of the world is on fire, and a lot of people have died. And I'm, I have a whole thing going on that I have no idea what it's about, but like, because of that. But I'm so grateful to it because I've gotten to really, I got to pause and get to know myself better, and peel the onion, peel another layer of that onion, dude. And I think before COVID, I was trying to do that, like going to meetings and but it was just like life was just so, and life's hectic again. And I can't remember if it was like this before or like it was just we were still for 2 years. And now it's like, oh my God, it's all coming at me at once. And it's so chaotic and hard. And I'm tired. And I know part of it is my COVID shit, but the other part of it is just like, we didn't do much for 2 years, right? But I'm so grateful that I got to have that space to just work through this stuff. When I was mourning a lot of my childhood, when I was in the fourth step, I I spent days just crying. And like, I think about that and I'm like, man, could I have done that in the real world? And no, I don't think so. I mean, don't get me wrong. The amount of times I've cried behind the bar is two very distinct times that I can remember. They were both involving a douchebag guy. One's in the book. One was not interesting enough to make it in the book, but I did get tipped really well both those days. One, I was working at Big Wings and I was a waitress, and I went to a table with four dudes. I don't know if I told you guys this before. It's so fucking funny though to me now. I go to the table and I'm crying. And if you've read the book, The Racing Accountant, and I had just broken up and I was a wreck. And it was the first like breakup I'd had in like recovery, right? I was an Al-Anon. So it was like the first breakup I'd had where I learned how to kind of feel my feelings. So I felt all of the feelings. It wasn't like one of my sponsor at the time, my Al-Anon sponsor and her friend, I went to a meeting and I was, sobbing through the meeting, and my sponsor looked at her friend, and she was my friend too, but they were close, and she was like, "Oh, Kim just broke up with her boyfriend." And this woman looked at me, and she's a psychiatrist too. And she looked at me and she goes, "Oh, you had your first Al-Anon breakup." And I was like, "What does that mean?" And she's like, "You're feeling all the feelings from past relationships too. It's like you've been like pushing the tears back and stuffing the feelings and stuffing the feelings. And now you know how to feel them. And so just all of them are going to come out." And boy, was she not wrong. I cried everywhere. There was a point where I was like, I guess I just cry all the time in public now. So I was waiting tables and I go up this table of dudes and I'm crying. Imagine your waitress at a wing shop. And we're supposed to be like cute, right? Like, "Hi, welcome to Big Wings." We were like the evil Hooters is what they called us. And we went over and I was like, "What can I get you guys?" And the guy was like, "We'll have 12 wings." And I was like, "Hot or mild?" He's like, "Hot." And I was like, and they're so uncomfortable, right? Because I'm sobbing. I'm like, "Okay, do you want ranch or blue cheese?" And the guy was like, "What's happening?" And I was like, "I said, do you want ranch or blue cheese?" And he was like, "We'll take ranch." And I was like, "Okay." And then I went off my way and cried some more in the waitress station. And then another time I was working at that nightclub, but we were open during the week for the Wiltern. Right, it's next door to the Wiltern. So we're open during the week, and I broke up with a guy. Actually, that guy was like, "Hey, I even though I said we were dating, I don't think we are dating, and I think you manipulated me, and I fucked my ex-girlfriend all weekend a few weeks ago." That's why it was a terrible, but it's not interesting because it was very short-lived, and man, I learned a lot of lessons. And this guy's kind of crazy. Like crazy, like he might be listening to this and block me on everything again. But the day we broke up, I went to work and I just cried behind the bar. I made a lot of money that day. Turns out when you cry behind the bar while you're bartending, but don't acknowledge that you're crying, people feel weird and they tip you more. That sounds really fucked up, but I don't remember what I was saying. Oh yeah, like I can't imagine working through what I worked through, especially in the first year of COVID, without being able to have full space. Oh, my cat just woke up from a nap. Hi, baby. Without having the space of just being in lockdown and alone, and then being able to go to like nightly Zoom ACA meetings. I will forever be grateful for that, because the sliding doors, the multiverse. I don't know what the multiverse is, but I think it's like sliding glass doors. Like, where isn't there a Gwyneth Paltrow movie? I love when I ask these random questions. I always get like 2 messages that are like, "Yeah, it was called this, and it was with Gwyneth Paltrow." And I'm like, and then by that time, I totally forgot what I was even talking about. Especially now, guys, that I like am doing these in a week in advance for the early access. I don't remember at all. Like today I had to re-listen because I was kind of freaked out about the one that released today on the 27th. especially after I saw the dude that I have a crush on is watching my stories. I'm like, what if he listens to this podcast? Did I tell the whole story? I think I told her for our date we had years ago, the full story like 3 weeks ago. Damage has been done. And if he listens to it and that scares him away, not the droid I'm looking for. But I'm grateful. Like the sliding glass door is a multiverse. Like what Kim Kral exists on another plane that didn't get the space in COVID to work through her shit. And I'm just really grateful. God, I'm so grateful. I know I say that a lot, which I don't think is a bad thing. That like a couple of days before lockdown, or no, when a couple of days into lockdown, I called my then sponsor and I told her that I was really scared. And she was, a little dismissive, but she was like, everybody's scared. I was like, no, I kind of think I'm going to kill myself. But, and instead that day, I remember that day, I was like, no, I kind of think I'm like really scared. Like a woman in ACA who I hadn't talked to, I hadn't been to ACA in a while. She messaged me. It was like, hey, we started a Zoom meeting. You can come on Sunday. And then there was one that was created daily that saved my fucking life. Because I looked at lockdown and I was like, and I know a lot of people, like a girl who I was really close to, who were no longer friends, come and go, man. She called and was like, I'm going to throw a party. Do you want to come? And I was like, dude, they just locked down the city. We don't know anything about this virus. And she was like, I don't give a fuck. I went to Bevmo and I'm going to be hammered for that. And she was, man, she posted all these stories where she was just real fucked up on her floor. And that my heart goes out to her because I know that's a human in pain, right? But like, I knew I could either do that or I could peel some. That's going to be the name of this podcast, by the way, peeling another layer of the onion. And I'm so grateful I did that. But right now I'm really working on procrastination and perfectionism. And that is tying in with Thailand. Like I'm just terrified I'm going to do something wrong. And I am going to channel my inner Aunt Amy today. And I'm just going to fucking weep. It's going to work out. The woman that is helping me plan the trip. I think I'm in love with her. I don't know. She's smoking hot. The day that we went and to have coffee, so we could talk about my trip or whatever. I didn't research coffee shops good enough because I just figured they'd all be opened. And we went to like 3 that were all closed because they all closed at like 4 or 5 in LA for some reason. I think after COVID, I think that was more of a COVID thing. And so we finally get to a coffee shop and I like profusely apologize to her. Like, I'm so sorry that, whatever, I should have planned better. Like, I'm not perfect and I should have done better, whatever, right? Whatever apology that was not needed. That she told me it was not needed. She's like, not needed. Why won't this? She told me it wasn't needed, but she was like, what you are going to learn with traveling by yourself, especially, is that shit is going to go wrong. Shit is going to go wrong. And you have to just go with the flow. And I'm like, man, dude, I am not good at that. I am not good at that. And I'm hoping I'll learn that here. I'm hoping I'll learn that in like a tiny thing, like where like maybe, one afternoon I was supposed to go do this one thing and it didn't work out. Not like a big thing, like, I miss a plane or that I booked a plane and a plane ticket in another city or something. You know what I mean? Like, I hope it's like minor, but who knows? But like, it's just like letting it go. And she's like, she travels the world like 9 months out of the year. And she's like, you're going to learn how to just go with the flow. And I'm pretty good at that, but I'm like a half and half, like a rigid control. And then I'm also pretty good at just letting go, man. But it's a daily job. Yeah. I just tried to check to see if any of you guys sent me a poop scoop. I forgot to check before I got on, and none of you have. And I'm very upset about it. Not really, but I haven't pooped my pants in a while, which is good, which is very good, guys, you should be rooting for me not to poop my pants. I know these stories are amazing, but I don't want to poop my pants ever again. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. I will go back. I have talked about this Oh, so if you want to send me a poop story last week, which I am going to, if you have sent me poop scoop stories, my goal, I'm going through all the episodes slowly. They'll be on TikTok soon. I keep saying that, but I'm not going to give myself a date. It's a tedious job, but it's great. And I'm excited, but I'm going to, if you have sent me poop scoops, I'm going to email you with the episode so you can listen to it. If you want to hear your own poop scoop and you haven't heard it. So if you have sent me a poop scoop, thank you. They make my whole fucking day. If you haven't and you have one, please send it to me. kimcrawlspace@gmail.com. If you don't want to write it out and you just want to like say it, tell the story in your own voice, you can email me a voice memo and I will input it in the podcast. I will figure out how to do that. I'll even put music behind it if you want. I learned how to do that recently and I'm shade too proud about that. But yeah, so please send it to me. But I have been thinking like about the various places, like pooping your pants is a fucking nightmare. That's all I have, you know? And like I went to Marshall's or something on Hollywood Boulevard, and there's no bathrooms in Hollywood. There's no public restrooms in Hollywood because the homeless situation is kind of out of control. And so when you even if you're like buy something, they're like, nope, no bathroom. So Marshalls and I got to poop and pee, but I have to get this one thing done because I had a deadline, whatever. Like I had to get this done. I had to buy an outfit for a thing and I only had this hour to do it. And I was like, and I asked the woman and she was like, there's no bathroom. And I was like, what if it's an emergency? She's like, sorry, there's like a McDonald's across the street. And I gambled it, guys. And I'm going to tell you that a lot of times in my life when I have gambled that, I have not won. But this time I did not poop my pants. It went away and I missed my chance for a few days, but I didn't poop my pants. I'm terrified. It's so funny. Like I want like with the Seattle guy, I wanted him to listen to this podcast. Like I wanted him so bad to like support me and listen, but I was like terrified that he would learn all this about me. And why? I'm fucking rad. And so are you. So are you. And if you haven't told yourself that recently, please do, because you are rad. You are rad. That is the episode. That's the episode, guys. Thank you for being here. If you want to join Patreon, you know the drill. Patreon.com/Kim Kral. I have 2 monthly bonus episodes, one where I talk about my sex life and sexual revolution. And I think I'm going to talk about a threesome I had like in detail next month. So if you want to join, you can join. It's like $3 a month. Fine. I have a podcast. We have a podcast with comedian Jeff May. And we have, it's like a 2-hour talk every month where we talk about what we're up to, talk about the business, we argue, we get upset, we love each other. It's a good conversation. And if you haven't bought my book and you'd like to, you can buy it, Confessions of a Recovering Party Girl. I will have the audiobook available by the end of May. 100%. That's a promise. Fuck, I make a lot of promises and they don't go, but it will be there before my 40th birthday and I'm going to be in Thailand for that. So I got to have it done. But if you are a Patreon subscriber, you get a free download of that. Or if you just want to buy it, that'll be on Amazon somewhere. I can't remember the website, but I'll post it obviously everywhere. So that's it. If you can and you haven't, please leave me a review. They just mean a lot to me. I mean, if it's a good review. A few people have not left me good reviews, and I'm not reviews, but ratings. And I'm like, oh no. Oh no, I actually don't. I care, but I don't care. Let's see if there's a new review. No, it's the same one where the guy called me fascinating, which I really appreciate. So leave a review if you get a second. If not, I think that is it, everybody. That is it. I hope everyone is staying safe. Please be kind. Yesterday, one last thing, I was out and a few people were staring. I had my mask on and people were staring at me like I was in a bunny suit. Like, what the fuck is she doing? And it was like, well, I'm in a bunny suit. I was like, pandemic's not over. Also, like when I go into like stores where it's like the workers have to work through the whole thing, like a Ralph's or a Walmart or, whatever, I wear my mask because I want to protect the workers because I'm not an asshole. I don't know, but like so many people gave me looks, and a few human men have told me that you don't have to wear the mask anymore. And if one more human man tells me that, I tweeted this, but I really mean it. I think I'm just gonna go, oh yeah, I know, but I just tested positive. So I didn't. But those people who feel the need to let me know that there's no mask probably didn't believe in COVID to begin with. And so let's see them get real freaked out. I don't know. Just be kind to each other. And if someone wants to wear a mask and it's not mandated, what do you fucking care? You know what I mean? Like if you're worried about them and they're worried about them, who's worrying about you? I will leave on that before I get in. The masks have been a subject of me totally losing my shit on this podcast over the last 2 years. And I want you to know that I'm fully aware of it. All right, everybody. I hope you're being kind. You're staying safe. Thank you for listening. I will talk to you soon. Bye.